I currently work in an oncology office where we treat over 100 patients a day with some form of cancer. Could you imagine us telling one of those patients their disease didn't warrant treatment? Could you imagine a world where we have to tell a breast cancer patient, I'm sorry, there's nothing we have to do, you just have to deal with it? We as healthcare professionals and as family members want our loved ones to seek the care and treatment they need when anything's causing them hurt or distress. So why would we not do the same for those who are suffering from a mental illness? Now imagine you're walking down the street. 1 out of every 5 people that you pass is going to be suffering from a mental illness. Mental illness can come in many forms, things such as depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and mood disorders. How are we able to eliminate the social stigma that is associated with those disorders? We first must recognize what a stigma is and how it is affecting the view of those disorders. We then need to ask ourselves, why is it important to understand and recognize the negative effects of the stigma of mental illness, and what can we do about eliminating that stigma? One of the most consistently influential factors that is affecting the decision of the stigma is both perceived and actualized towards the mentally ill. You see, there is a very strong need to eliminate the stigma that is associated with mental illness. There are 450 million people worldwide who are suffering from some form of mental disease, of which only 40% are seeking treatment, while 90% of individuals in developing countries seek no treatment at all. Additionally, around 9.3 million Americans are suffering from a disorder severe enough that is impacting or significantly impeding their daily activities. Approximately 10.2 million adults have a co-occurring mental health and addiction disorder, while 26% of homeless adults staying in shelters are living with a serious mental illness. According to the World Health Organization and World Economic Forum, mental illness represents one of the biggest economic burdens of any health issue in the world, which is costing about $2.5 trillion in 2010 and projected to reach $6 trillion by 2030, with 2/3 of those costs being related to disability and loss of work. Serious mental illness is costing Americans $193.2 billion in lost earnings per year. Mood disorders, including major depression, dysmic disorder, and bipolar disorder, are 1/3 of the common cause of hospitalization in the U.S. for both young and adults aged 18 to 44. Now, the stigma that's associated with mental illness can cause negative impacts on those it affects, such as social distancing or isolating themselves from others. The stigma embraces both prejudicial and discriminating behaviors towards individuals with mental health disorders and mental health problems. And the social effects of this include exclusion, poor social support, lower self-esteem, and poor subjective quality of life. So as you can see, mental illness is an ongoing problem, and it's not getting any better. How are we able to help eliminate that stigma that's associated with that mental illness, and how are we able to aid those that are suffering and afraid to get treatment without the fear of being judged? The number one thing that we need to do as a society is to educate ourselves on mental illness and the impact that it has on lives. Educate yourself by finding an organization in your area and learning about the different disorders and how they're classified as mental illness. The next thing to do is to listen. Listen to those who are suffering and never discredit that they aren't hurting or discredit their condition. And control your reactions. Yes, your reactions. Words can be hurtful. When finding out someone is suffering from a mental disorder, don't let your reaction get the best of you. Just remember that when you're suffering from a mental disorder, it doesn't make you any less of a person, and your feelings still matter. So just be mindful. Be mindful of your words. Don't make statements like, oh, you're crazy, or that's not really a disease, and you're not really hurting. Don't do that. It can be more hurtful than beneficial. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, the 3rd leading cause of death for people aged 10 to 24, and the 2nd leading cause of death for people aged 15 to 24. More than 90% of the children who have died by suicide have been diagnosed with a mental disorder. By eliminating the stigma that's around mental illness, we're able to allow more individuals to become more comfortable with seeking treatment. By letting individuals become more comfortable with seeking treatment and getting the help that they need, we're able to lower those suicide rates, not only in the United States, but worldwide. You see, mental illness is rapidly becoming more of an issue in our country, and it's up to us to make the change that's needed, that our family, our friends, and our loved ones are able to get the help and seek the treatment that they need. In order to eliminate that stigma that's associated with mental illness, we must be willing to help those that we care about by willing to learn about mental illness and become aware of the signs and symptoms. Become aware of those signs and symptoms that are associated with those disorders. Find an organization in your area that offers information and reach out to them. Reach out to them to get the information about what they may be going through, that they're able to help you understand. Listen to those that are around you. Sometimes that's all they need is an ear to listen. Be that person. Help them seek treatment. Help them locate a provider in your area that can aid them in working through their disorder. Just help them. Don't treat them any differently. If a loved one has shared with you, don't judge the disorder based on irrelevant facts that you think that you know. Seek information and become more educated. Most importantly, when they say they're hurting, be willing to offer your full support and encouragement. Make them understand that you want to help. Make them realize that you're not turning your back on them and that you are going to be there to encourage them. And if it's you, if you're the one hurting, reach out. Reach out to someone. If it's a friend, a family, a loved one, help them.